Okay. Sorry, actually, there's a technical issue. So today's session is Dr. Rajesh Krishnan. He is a radiation oncologist, AIIMS Rishikesh. So did his MBBS and MD from JEPMA in Pondicherry, and now he's doing postdoctoral certificate course in AIIMS Rishikesh. So we are honored to have you. Can we start the session, sir?
Sure. Is my screen visible?
Sorry?
Is my screen visible?
No, not yet. Yeah, your screen is visible. Now, yes, sir. Your screen is visible now.
Thank you.
Okay. So over to you, sir.
So, good evening, students, colleagues. So today I'm given the opportunity to teach you a little bit of facts about anatomy, physiology of the respiratory system. So I'll keep it very simple. I won't be going into any details. So let's see a little bit of the introduction first. So what is breathing? Breathing is a cyclical, regular process of taking in air into the lungs and expelling it into the atmosphere, which facilitates in gas exchange within the body. So we take oxygen in mainly, and then we give carbon dioxide out. This cyclical process is called breathing. So why should we breathe? Body needs energy for various activities. So where do we get the energy from? The energy is obtained through the food that we eat. But the food that we eat are complex carbohydrates, complex sources of energy, and the energy is stored within them, which we are unable to access. So we need to convert them into a source or convert them into a form which can be accessed by our body to let us use in various activities, the physical activity or the mental activity. So why should we breathe? We inhale oxygen and then exhale carbon dioxide. The oxygen that we inhale lets us use the energy from the food. The complex energy that is stored within the bonds of the food is broken down by the oxygen, and this energy is incorporated as part of our body as ATP molecules, and that is why we need oxygen. And in this process, a lot of carbon dioxide is also generated by the body, which is not good for the body, which cannot be utilized by the body, which needs to be excreted out of the body. And these two processes are taken care during breathing: the inhalation of oxygen and the exhalation of carbon dioxide. So that is why we need to know about the respiratory system. And let us first go into the anatomy of the respiratory system. So how do we breathe? We breathe through the airways. In the next few slides, we will be seeing into the a bit in depth into the anatomy of the airways. We breathe through the airways with the help of the respiratory muscles and with additional help from accessory respiratory muscles when we need their help. Otherwise, normally it is just with the primary respiratory muscles. And all this is a complex process which is regulated by the respiratory centers within our brain. So let us see the airways. So the air is taken in from the atmosphere through the nose. The red dot that you can see here represents the oxygen molecule that would be going in from the atmosphere and taken into the lungs. So the oxygen molecule, this red, is entering our body through our nose. This is the nasal cavity, and then it comes into the pharynx. This portion demarcated by the red dot is the pharynx. And After that, it goes further into the pharynx. This part is called the oropharynx technically. And then it goes into the larynx. That structure that you can see with a lid on top, that is called the larynx. And then posteriorly there is esophagus, and further going down, the oxygen doesn't go into the esophagus here. This is the esophagus, and the oxygen doesn't go in there, but it preferentially takes this path into the larynx and then into the trachea. After this, following the trachea, the air goes into the bronchus, and then these bronchi divide into smaller branches, just like the roots of a tree, roots of a plant. It divides further and then forms the smaller bronchioles, segmental bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, and finally become the alveolus. So oxygen finally reaches. Hello, am I audible? I suppose
Yes,
somebody
sir.
is unable to hear me.
We are able to hear.
So finally, the oxygen reaches the alveolus, from where this is taken into the body. So this is the anatomy. So let us go into the airways. The small alveolus, let us look into how the oxygen is, what is the gaseous exchange that is happening in the airways, in the alveolus. So this small, the end region is magnified into this alveolus. This sac-like structure, that is called the alveolus, and that is where our final oxygen reaches. And there is a blood vessel. This is a capillary. A very small vessel is called a capillary, and the blood is inside the capillary. These small red structures are the RBCs, and the oxygen is taken from within the alveolus into the blood vessels and into the RBCs, while the carbon dioxide, which is inside the RBCs or inside the blood, is taken out into the alveolus. And the carbon dioxide again takes the same route taken by the oxygen to the outside. So, okay, this is how the oxygen enters. But how does oxygen enter our body? That requires the help of respiratory muscles. So on the left, what you can see are the muscles of inspiration, taking air inside our body. And on the right, what you see are the muscles of expiration. Normally, in a quiet respiration, only the inspiration is supported by muscles, meaning when we breathe in, that requires the support of muscles. And during quiet breathing out, we don't need any muscle to support us. That happens normally by the recoil of the lungs and the recoil of the diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles. So let us see first what is the principal inspiratory muscle. That is, these are the muscles. The principal inspiratory muscles are the muscles that are used when we inspire normally. So these are two major muscles: diaphragm, which is situated at the bottom of the rib cage, like this. It is a dome-shaped muscle which is situated at the bottom of the rib cage. And while breathing, this dome-shaped muscle moves downwards, like this. And then while expiring, it normally moves upwards, like this. Okay, so these are the principal muscles of normal inspiration. And now coming at certain times, we'll need to run, we'll need to do extra work, and the normal oxygen that is inspired is not enough for the body to take care of all its activities. So that's when we need the accessory muscles. Accessory meanings helping muscles. These muscles help in increasing the oxygen that we take inside our body, and then helps in actively pushing out these muscles, pushing out the gases, the carbon dioxide out of our body. So what are these muscles? These are a group of muscles in the neck, like the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the scalenus group of muscles. The scalenus group of muscles will include scalenus anterior, scalenus medius, scalenus posterior. So you just need to remember that there are a group of neck muscles, sternocleidomastoid and scalenus group of muscles. Then we have a few chest muscles. So these are pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. These are not shown in this diagram, but these are muscles which are present over these ribs. So, and the internal intercostal muscles, noted by the blue arrows on the right side. So these are the muscles which help in actively inspiring, inhaling oxygen when the need is increased. So now let us come to the muscles which help us exhale forcefully. These muscles, the main group of muscles are the abdominal muscles. Abdominal muscles which will include the central muscles, including the quadratus lumborum, the rectus abdominis, the external oblique muscles, the internal oblique muscles, and the transversus abdominis. These set of muscles are the major muscles which help in exhaling. So just let us remember these names. What are the major nerves involved in respiration? This phrenic nerve is the nerve which helps in stimulating the diaphragm, and vagus nerve which innervates multiple muscles in the thorax and abdomen, but it also innervates the diaphragm. Phrenic nerve and vagus nerve innervates the diaphragm, and which helps us in inhaling and the normal exhaling. And then there are the intercostal nerves. Intercostal nerves are nerves which innervates these muscles, the muscles in between these the ribs. The muscles in between the ribs are called the intercostal muscles. They have external intercostal and internal intercostal muscles, and both of these are innervated by the intercostal nerves. So these are the major nerves which help in respiration. And then there are other nerves which supply the rest of the muscles, the accessory muscles, which also help in respiration, but not in the regular inspiration and expiration. So now, since we know a little bit of the anatomy, let us go into the physiology of breathing. A normal breathing cycle includes around 12 to 15 breaths per minute. That is, one breath takes around 5 seconds, which translates to 12 breaths per minute in a normal person who is resting. And this is mainly happening by abdominothoracic means, meaning first the abdominal muscles act, like the diaphragm act, and the abdomen raises, and then beyond that the thoracic component of breathing happens. It's abdominothoracic breathing. And then there are 3 phases of respiration, which is inspiration, expiration, and a pause. Initially, as you can see in this diagram, initially you can see the inspiration, which is a little bit to ascending, and then there is an expiration. This is the normal breathing. And in some cases, there is a pause, which can be present in between the inspiration and the expiration. This pause can be present in between the inspiration and the expiration, and it can be present after the expiration also, which can be normal. So now let us come to the lung volumes. Okay, what you see in this diagram is a regular respiration. This is when we are breathing in, this when we are breathing out, and then we are breathing in. We are normally breathing in and breathing out. And then now we are going to take a deep inspiration. So that's when here, it starts here, and then we take a deep inspiration, and then maximally if we inspire, we can go up to here. And then if we maximally exhale, then we can go down up to here. And then we resume a regular breathing. So let us see the volumes. So what you see is from here, from the top of the maximum inspiratory capacity to the bottom, and then a little bit beyond. That is our total lung capacity. and the volume of air which we breathe normally in and out during a normal breathing at rest is called the tidal volume, and the volume beyond the normal inspiration, the maximum volume that we can take beyond the normal inspiration is called the inspiratory reserve volume, and the volume of air which we can expire beyond the normal expiration, that is called the expiratory reserve volume. So adding these three volumes, the total air that can be expired and then inspired, the total volume is called, after maximal expiration or after maximal inspiration, the maximum volume that can be expired, that is called the vital capacity. We'll see the actual volumes in the next slide, but just get accustomed, get familiarized with these terminology. And that is called the vital capacity. Then the volume which is within the lungs, within the airways and the lungs, even after we expire fully, that is the residual volume. So then now you will have a doubt, what is residual volume? If we have expired all the air that is within our lungs, then there is no air within our lungs. So what is this residual volume which contributes to the total lung capacity? So even when we maximally expire, there is an amount of air which is present within the airways. The airways don't collapse, only the alveoli collapse. So the air which is present within the airways, this forms the residual volume. So now let us see what are the actual volumes. So this total lung capacity, it contributes to around 5 to 6 liters. So this is the tidal volume. The tidal volume, let us recollect, tidal volume is the volume, normal volume of air which we take in and breathe out during a regular respiration. That is around 500 ml, only half a liter. And the inspiratory capacity, the maximum amount of air that can be inspired beyond the tidal volume, and we can take up to 3 liters. Expiratory capacity is the maximum volume that can be expired beyond the normal expiration, that is 1.3 liters. And vital capacity, which is the sum of the tidal volume, the maximum inspiratory capacity and the expiratory capacity, which is 4.8 liters, which is around 5 liters. 5 liters is the maximum volume of air which you can breathe in after a forceful expiration. So that is a huge volume. And the residual volume, the air which is always trapped within our lungs, even after maximal expiration, the air which cannot go out of the lungs is around 1.2 liters. So the whole of this, the total lung capacity, when you add all of this, then you will get a total of around 6 liters. 6 liters is the total capacity of our lungs. Okay, so now that we know what is the anatomy of the lungs, anatomy of the airways, and the physiology of the lungs, let us see how you can breathe better. So how can you increase the total lung capacity? Can you actually increase the lung capacity? So is the capacity of the lungs same for a normal person and same for an athlete? They are not. So what is the difference? How can you increase the total lung capacity? When you do exercise, there are these alveoli that you can see here. They are, what you can see are the expanded alveoli. And in a when we take rest, and people who are regularly resting, some of these alveoli always remain collapsed. Even in a normal breathing, these alveoli don't open up. So these causes a decrease in the total lung capacity. So how can we open up these alveoli which are not working? So that can be done through exercise. When you do regular exercise, mainly aerobic exercises like running. While you do aerobic exercises, these closed alveoli open up. And increasing pressure during expiration. How can you increase pressure during expiration? By closing both the nose while you try exhaling out. After closing both nose and your mouth, you can increase the pressure within the lungs. So a similar thing is what you do when you do the alom vilom. So what you do is close one nose and then and decrease the pressure during inspiration. How do you decrease the pressure during inspiration? Normally we don't breathe in through our mouth, do we? So when we breathe in only through the nose, there is a little bit of resistance to the inspiration. So when we open our mouth also for breathing in, then the pressure, the resistance to the air is decreased. So that is how we decrease the pressure during inspiration. So which helps more air to be taken into the lungs. So these are the three main ways that you can increase the total lung capacity. So now you have understood that it is a complex respiration is a complex task, which includes multiple muscles and to be working in a coordinated fashion. That one muscle should not exhale while help in exhalation, while another muscle is inhaling. So how is this control done? How is respiration controlled in our body? So this coordination of this group of muscles, and we need one more thing for respiration control. While we are normally breathing, that is one aspect of it. And hello?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Can I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes.
So the regular respiration is one aspect of coordination, and when you exercise, your demand of oxygen increases. So during that time, your accessory muscles should also work. So how does that work? You need a coordinator. And then there is during swallowing, you are swallowing in food. That's food should not enter your lungs. That needs coordination. And coughing, while you're coughing out, then you should not breathe in. Only the expiratory muscle should act. So that needs coordination. And then while you're sneezing, that also requires a coordinated expiratory effort from all the muscles. And then when you're vomiting, when the gastric contents are coming out through your mouth, vomiting, you should not inspire. So all this requires a coordinated activity, coordinated respiratory activity. And how is that done? So brainstem, we need the brain to control all this. Brainstem is the part that controls breathing mainly. So brainstem has three major parts: midbrain, pons, and medulla. And out of that, medulla oblongata and pons. These are the two major parts of the brainstem that helps in coordinating the regular breathing. So in the medulla, there are two groups. Okay, so this is the picture. This is the brainstem. What you can see at the top here, that is the brain, and here this is the brainstem, which continues as the spinal cord. So now we'll see a magnified view of the brainstem. And what you can see at the top here, this is the midbrain, which doesn't involve in respiration. And this egg-like structure, which you can see in the middle, that is the pons. And this structure, this tube-like structure that you can see, that is the medulla oblongata. So this medulla oblongata is the place where respiration, the normal respiration, is coordinated. So it has two groups, the ventral respiratory group and the dorsal respiratory group. The dorsal respiratory group takes care of inspiration and the ventral respiratory group takes care of expiration. And then we come to the pons. The pons has two areas, the apneustic center and the pneumotaxic center. What does the apneustic center do? When you want to take a deep breath, then apneustic center is what helps you in doing that. So basically what you have to understand is apneustic center helps in inspiration. And pneumotaxic center gives a break on inspiration. It doesn't help in expiring, but then it decreases the rate of inspiration. So recalling once again, this dorsal respiratory group helps in inspiration, apneustic center helps in inspiration, pneumotaxic center inhibits inspiration, and the ventral respiratory group inhibits, promotes expiration. So this is the brainstem. And then in the previous slide, we also saw that the cerebral cortex also has a role in respiration.
Hello.
So why?
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, you are audible.
Hello.
Okay. Hello. Previously, voice was little glitchy.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I wasn't able to. Yeah, I am just confused in the last slide.
Are you talking about the diagram?
Yeah,
Okay.
the diagram and the inspiration and the expiration process of the dorsal and the ventral part.
Okay. So what we see here, I'll explain this part once again. This part, this tubular structure is called the medulla oblongata, and this dorsal respiratory group is the inspiratory center. So dorsal respiratory group is what helps you in inspiring regularly, and ventral respiratory group, it is what helps you in expiring regularly. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then this apneustic center. Apneustic center is a part which is present within the pons, and that center helps in deep inspiration. And pneumotaxic center helps in inhibiting the inspiration. For example, let me give you an example. While we are exercising, we need a deep inspiration, correct? So apneustic center, or while we are relaxing and while we need to take a deep inspiration, the apneustic center gives that signal to the dorsal group, and then this signal is passed on to the respiratory muscles through the pathways that are shown. So this apneustic center will keep on doing that, will keep on sending the inspiratory signals. So beyond a point, the chest wall cannot expand. So what controls that? There should be a mechanism to inhibit the apneustic center from sending the inspiratory signals, right? So that is what is done by the pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center inhibits the inhalatory signals sent by the apneustic center. Okay, so once that is done, then we'll just go back to the previous slide to see what the cerebral cortex does. Cerebral cortex is this part of the brain that we are talking about. So what does this do? For example, we are doing some voluntary physical activity, that is you're running, you're swimming, or you are singing. So during these times, what you need is a deep breath. First you have to take a deep breath, and then you will have to proceed with the activity that you're doing to increase the oxygen intake into your body. So these signals are not directly taken care of by the medulla or the pons. Those signals, when we need a deep inspiration, when we voluntarily have to take a deep inspiration, when we think we have to take a deep inspiration, then that is done by the cerebral cortex, this area of the brain. So that's the end of this session. If everybody has understood everything, good. And if you haven't, you can ask doubts.
Anjali Rai, you have a doubt, please ask.
Yes, just a second. I'm just taking it.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, Anjali.
Yes, sir. So, sir, we just go through the center of the medulla oblongata, where we have just learned about the dorsal and the ventral group. In the dorsal group, we just discussed about it helps in the inspiration, right? And in the apneustic center, where it is helping in the deep inspiration, and we can even say the voluntary inspiration. So
voluntary inspiration is mainly taken. Voluntary inspiration is mainly taken care of by the cerebral cortex.
Medulla oblongata.
No. Cerebral cortex.
Yeah.
These are involuntary centers.
Cerebral, yes. So
Hello, Anjali?
the deep inspiration is not done by the apneustic center.
The deep inspiration, for example, like while you're running or swimming, those are times when there are some times when you voluntarily want to take a deep inspiration. So this voluntary deep inspiration is taken care of by the cerebral cortex. And when there are activities like swimming, while doing swimming, you might need to take a deep breath. So these are not voluntary. You don't think that I have to take a deep breath. These are signals which are happening involuntarily. So that is taken care of by the apneustic center. Deep inspiration that is taken care of, that happens involuntarily, is taken care of by the apneustic center. Is that clear?
Okay, sir. And sir, yes, sir. And sir, the pneumotoxic center inhibits the apneustic center.
It doesn't directly inhibit the apneustic center. It inhibits the dorsal respiratory group. But basically, its action, it's like it's against the apneustic center.
Okay.
Like apneustic center increases the inhalation, pneumotoxic center decreases the inhalation, like that.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Any more questions? If there are nothing else, then
excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Vaishali?
So what is the main role of ventral respiratory group actually?
Okay, so what you can see on the right side here, dorsal respiratory group and the apneustic center, they help in inspiration, right? So there should be a part which helps in coordinating the expiration also. So ventral respiratory group is that center. Ventral respiratory group takes care of the expiration.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So Saloni, if you can proceed.
Okay. Hello. Sir, please stop sharing, sir, your screen. Hello.
Yeah, I'm on that. I'm trying to.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for such an enlightening session. And before we start the second session, I'll give an announcement that our quiz is on. Our quiz is on the sharp 5 o'clock. So if we get the question answer session, then we take the question answer session after the 5:10 o'clock. So I'll introduce